The more I think about masking, the more topics I need to cover. The more topics I need to cover, the more complicated masking gets. This video is going to simplify it because it's really not that hard once you strip away all the complexity of it. There's two main sections that you can use for masking. Under Select is Color Range, and below the colors is the Quick Mask. We're going to start with Select Color Range. At its core, what Color Range does is it selects similar colors in a very quick fashion. If I simply click on this green, it's going to take a range of colors that match what I clicked on. So the more I click on it, the more the colors change. Red that you see is only a definer. It's just a color to show what is selected. If you don't see anything on yours, check your selection preview because it may be set to none, because I'm pretty sure that's what Photoshop uses by default. Change it to Quick Mask. Now you're going to see a color every time you click in the area. It's going to change a little bit. If you hold down the Shift key, it's going to do the same thing as pushing this eyedropper plus button. It's going to add to the selection every time you click. And again, you can use the Shift key to do it as well. When you get a general selection that you like, in this case, I'm selecting all the green, you can go OK. Before we leave, I want to show you that fuzziness, the higher it goes, the more it's going to select. The lower it goes, the less it's going to select. I find, in general, 40 works just fine. This checkbox of invert, right now, what we have selected is what's going to be selected when we come out. But I can click invert, and it shows you the opposite. It's only a matter of personal taste and what you need to see when you're working. In this case, I'm going to turn off the invert, and I'm going to go OK. Right now, it's selected all the green. All these moving lines are called marching ants. Basically, this shows what is currently selected. At this point, we can click on the Quick Mask, which is under the colors here, and it takes us back to what you saw before, where all the green is selected. Let's zoom in. Once I zoom in, you can see that there were all these little areas that were missed originally using Color Range. Color Range is good to start, but it's not perfect. Here we can use the brush tool and simply click and drag. What we're doing is we're filling in all these areas that Quick Mask missed. That can become a little tedious, but it's kind of what you have to do. However, there is a slightly easier way than doing it like that. If you come out of the Quick Mask, and while you have the selection going, you can go to Select, Modify, Expand, and then you can expand it a couple pixels, 1 or 2, maybe even 3. Now you see what just happened? I'm going to undo, and you see all these extra pixels going. When I do the expand, it fills it in. Basically, it just expands it a little bit and gets rid of some of those extra little overhang ones in the final mask. Another thing that I suggest is going to modify feather, and we can give it another 2 pixels of feathering just to soften the edge. Now when we come into the Quick Mask again, you can see it's filled in a lot more than it was before. And if you want to touch up a little bit in some of these areas, then that would be fine. We come out of the Quick Mask, and we have the selection. At this point, we have full control over just those individual areas. In this case, all the green. So as an example, if I click on the saturation, you can see that that Quick Mask becomes a mask on the layer that we just created. If I undo, you can see all these marching ants for the selection, and then if I click one of these adjustments, it applies that to the layer. Now, as you can see, I can completely boost the saturation and only affect those areas that were masked out. Very simple. Let's say, for example, we only want the grass up here, not the grass down here. We can click on the layer itself. Once again with the brush, I can make the brush a little bit bigger, and then I can brush in these areas. Right now I have white selected, so based off of what's going to happen, in this case, I'm going to add to the selection. If you see how it added that swipe to it. If I change it to black instead of white, now I'm going to be removing. See how that worked? Let me help you a little bit. I am going to push the backslash, which is above the enter key on the keyboard, and that shows you the mask for the layer that we're on. So if you think of red is the equivalent of black, or black is the equivalent of red, because this is only the masked selection, I can click and drag, and I'm adding to that mask. If I swap it around so it's white, now I'm erasing the mask. I'm going to push that backslash again, that's above the enter key, and you can see that swipe that I made is saturated because that's the layer that we're on. Once again, I'll flip the colors and I'll go over it again, and it's filling in what this layer is made of, which is saturation. I'll even do that just so it's a little bit more obvious. Don't worry about what I just did. That's just making a separate color change just so you could clearly see the difference. I go backwards. I'm erasing. I flip it around. I'm adding. I'm modifying this layer right here. That's all I'm doing. Now, another way that we can do masking, I'm going to zoom in. Is using a brush. I'm going to throw this away, and I'm going to start over. If I go into Quick Mask, by itself, there is no mask. If I paint with white, there's still no mask, because think of white is clear, and if I flip it around, black is going to be the mask. And in this case, black equals red. It's completely arbitrary, because if I double click on the Quick Mask, here's where I select that color. This option panel, if I click on the red, I can change it to bright green. Go OK, OK, and when I go back into Quick Mask, now it's green. I can just as easily double click on it and make it a completely different color. It's 100% your preference. I recommend, in most cases, a bright green because that's least seen within an image. Because that one is the most obvious in an image because you don't usually have bright green like this. However, since this image is green, I would recommend using red. Okay. I'm right now out of Quick Mask. I'm going to go Select, Deselect. Okay, so right now we're back to the original image. There is no mask, there is no selection. If I click on the Quick Mask again, once again, there is no mask and there is no selection until I paint. As I just said, if I paint with white, white is clear, there is nothing. So let's start painting by using black, which is the mask. The hardness of your brush matters. This is a soft outline around the lion. This is a soft outline around the animal. So we're going to use a softer brush. Let's say 20% hardness, which is the feathering. And I'm going to paint around the outside. Now if you say that looks too soft, you're absolutely right. I'm going to undo, and I'm going to make the brush harder. Let's say 50%. That's better. So I'm going to zoom in tighter. I'm going to make this brush a little bit smaller. I'm going to click and drag, and now I'm painting on the mask. Essentially, I'm creating this mask. And I'm just going to follow along the inside of this object. It could be somebody's skin, it could be a shirt, it could be whatever you want it to be. In this case, I'm just going around the outside of the animal. How tight it needs to be is completely up to you, and it depends on what you're trying to do. What is your end goal? For example, if your end goal is going to be creating a heightened contrast, then you need a tighter mask. If your goal is going to be to selectively alter the color of skin, it may be a looser mask. It depends on what you're looking to do, because in some cases Photoshop is more forgiving than others. Before I finish this mask, I want to show you that so far I've been clicking and dragging with the mouse. However, you can get a much better, tighter mask by clicking once, holding down the Shift key, and clicking along a straight line. Holding down the Shift key, you can continue to click, and you can make many different clicks as you slowly go around the object. If you need to go back a little bit, go ahead. Now in this case, and you've seen me do it before, I go over too far. I would flip it around, because remember, white equals clear, and I would go back over it again, and that is an erase. See? Flip it around and go at it again. Get it? So I'm just going to finish up here. And I'm going to back out so you can see the whole animal. So now I went around the entire animal and I've created a mask around its body. I can do a few different things at this point in order to fill this in. One way is a slower approach, quite literally painting it in. Many times that becomes too tedious. So another way you can approach this is use the magic wand. And I would specify that it should be on a pixel-based layer, for example, background. If it's on an adjustment layer or other type of layer, like a vector layer or something, it won't work. But on a pixel-based layer like background, it will work. We take the magic wand and we click, and it's going to fill in right to the edge. Now, I'm going to show you something and then I'm going to back up. If I go Edit Fill with the foreground color, which is black, or you can come down to black by itself and go OK, deselect, you can see that it left this halo, this little gap. That's because of our soft edge. It went up to the edge of that feathering, but it did not go past it. I'm going to back up. Once again, I'm going to use the magic wand, and here you can see that it comes to the edge, but not quite all the way. Select, modify, expand. Say 4 pixels. Now it extended that past that point. Now we can go Edit, Fill, Foreground Color, which is black, and go OK. Deselect. Now you can see that we have a nice clean mask on the inside of this animal. If you see any little areas like that that need to be touched up, grab your brush and touch it up. When we come out of Quick Mask, we now have a mask. This is part that is confusing. When you come out of the mask like that, you see that I currently have the selection out to the edge of the image. That means everything except the animal is selected. Okay? Right now we've masked the animal so that nothing we do is going to go into the animal. So all the changes that we make are going to happen on the outside. In this case, we go select inverse. That goes away, and now just the animal is selected. I hope you understand that if you want the animal selected, you should not see the ants marching around on the outside of the image, only around the selected area. Now, that specific change can be addressed by double-clicking on the quick mask. See how it's the exact opposite of what we were painting on? That comes from this right here, masked areas versus selected areas. See how it changes it around? So just depends on what you need to see. Do you need to see this part or do you need to see that part when you're doing the mask? Another thing that you could do is change the opacity. Let's say 50%. And then you could see some of what's behind it. I don't like to do this because then you can't judge whether something has a gradient on it or whether your brush is at 100% or if it was left at 70% or 80% from something else that you had done at some other point in time. But basically, I would leave that at 100% all the time. Whether it be masked or selected areas is completely up to you. And right now, we can come over here. We can come over here and see that just the animal is selected. So, if I click on the saturation, I can do a boost, and as you see, only that area is being affected. See? And that's a relatively quick introduction to masking. There are infinitely more complicated ways that you can use different tools to create masks. However, this is just a very simple introduction to show you that it really is not that complicated. All I did was go to Quick Mask, and I did a brush around the inside of the animal, and then I applied whatever I wanted to. In this case, I selected saturation. It could have just as easily been levels or curves or something else. Now that you understand this very basic concept, you can start applying this to more complex masks.